Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajagacharya Astu Tadasata Sisiman. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Ki Jai. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Ajola Vitabujo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kipitaro Kalamataksho Vishvambaro Jivavaro Yugadharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karuna Avataro Anandali Layamaya Vigrahaya Himamba Divyachavi Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Lila, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami gives a benediction to the readers of Chaitanya Charitamrita, where he says, Chaitanya Charitamrita Nitya Karapan Dhyaha Hoite Premananda Bhakti Tattva Gyan. That those who read the Chaitanya Charitamrita on a daily basis, the reward is that they receive Bhakti Tattva Gyan and Premananda, bliss, experiencing the love of Krishna. So this week is a very special week as we have the opportunity to relish the unlimited pastimes which are in the ocean of the Chaitanya Charitamrita and try to find just a drop of that ocean in order to nourish us. Today is the auspicious disappearance day of Srila Madhavendra Puri, and in commemoration of that day we will be reading a verse glorifying Madhavendra Puri. Jaya Shri Madhava Puri Krishna Prema Pur. Bhakti Kalpa Tarura Tehon Pratama Akura. Jaya Shri Madhava Puri Krishna Prema Pur. Bhakti Kalpa Tarura Tehon Pratama Akura. Jai Shri Madhava Puri Krishna Prema Pur. Bhakti Kalpa Tarura Tehon Pratama Akur. Jaya, all glories, Shri Madhava Puri, on to Madhavendra Puri, Krishna Prema Pur, a storehouse of all love of Godhead, Bhakti Kalpa Tarura, of the desire tree of devotional service, Tehon, he is, Pratama, first, Ankura. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Fructification. Thank you. Fructification. All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. He is the desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. Purport. Sri Madhavendra Puri, also known as Sri Madhava Puri, belonged to the disciplic succession from Madhva Acharya and was a greatly celebrated sannyasi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the third disciplic descendant from Sri Madhavendra Puri. The process of worship in the disciplic succession of Madhva Acharya was full of ritualistic ceremonies, with hardly a sign of love of Godhead. Sri Madhava Puri was the first person in that disciplic succession to exhibit the symptoms of love of God, and the first to write a poem beginning with the words, Ai Dina Dayadar Natha He. O supremely merciful personality of Godhead. In that poem is the seed of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cultivation of love of God. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakvaya Chakshurun Minitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Putale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Padakamalam, Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam, Sagana Lalita, Shri Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Savadutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padan, Sagana Lalita, Shri Vishakam Vitamscha, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine, Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatchade Shatarine, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate, Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratvise Namaha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate, Gopisva Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute, Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Rishabhanu Sade Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vansha kalpa tarumbhasya kripa sindhu devacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yatha Yatha Gaura Parada Vinde, Indeta Bhaktim Krita Punya Rasahi, Tato Tato Sarpadi Rikta Kaksmad, Radha Padam Voja Sadam Varasahi. At the onset of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a verse describing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it says, Vande Gurun Isha Bhaktam Isham Ishvaratarakam Tat Prakashas Tatah Shaktir Krishna Chaitanya Samjikam. That to glorify Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doesn't mean just glorifying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, but actually glorifying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu means glorifying his expansions, his incarnations, his energetic potency, and his devotees. So as we enter into Gaur Purnima, entering into Gaur Purnima doesn't mean just celebrating the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it means celebrating Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with himself and all of his associates. And it's not a mistake that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day comes shortly after the disappearance day of Srila Madhavendra Puri. As Sri Madhavendra Puri, as is being said here in this verse, is the root of the devotional ecstasy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Paritranaya sarunam vinasaya chaduskritam dharma samstarpanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. That the Lord comes in various ages in order to establish the principles of religion, and when he does that, he doesn't do it whimsically, although he's completely capable of doing so as he's Svarat. But in order to honor the principle of the disciplic succession, he upholds the principles of tradition and Shastra in order to give his message and his incarnation more validity and strength in the eyes of those who would be known as Pashantis, unbelievers. Evam praptam emam raja suryovidu. Before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears, many of his associates appear before him. His mother, his father, his spiritual master, and his grand spiritual master, and Srila Madhavendra Puri. In order to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have to understand Srila Madhavendra Puri, or we have to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees. And in order to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's devotees, we have to understand who Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. So it's explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vrikatir Ladini Shakti Asmat Ekab Atma Bhuvi Purara Deham Betam Katau Tau Chaitam Akyam Prakartam Aruna Tatvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Duti Svalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. That Radha and Krishna are eternally one principle together, but for the sake of experiencing the Ladini potency, the exchanges of love and devotion between the Vishaya Vigraha, the object of love, and the abode, the Ashraya Vigraha, the abode of love, that person who is carrying love for Krishna. They exist eternally as two. But now in Kali Yuga, these two personalities have become one again, and they've appeared in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Radha Bhava Duti Svalitam Nomi Krishna Svarupam. That person who is Krishna, that person who is Jagannath, is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this form of Krishna is not appearing with a blackish complexion. Krishna Varnam Trisha Krishna Sango Pangashta Parshadam Yagyar Sankirtanir Prayer Yajanti Hi Sumeda Saha. That Krishna who came with a blackish complexion has now appeared in a non-blackish complexion with the Radha Bhava Duti, the complexion of Srimati Radharani, and the bhava, the mood of Srimati Radharani. So in order to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can understand this verse. And in order to understand the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates, we can look at this verse as well. Radha Bhava Duti Svalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. That the overwhelming mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that Vishaya Vigraha, that object of love, has adopted the mood of the Ashraya Vigraha. And because the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to, for one, experience the love of his devotee, and for two, to distribute this love to the entire world. Anarpita charim chirat karuna avichirna kalo samarpaitam udnansha dwalarasam swabhakti shriyam hari pundara sundara duti kadamba sadipitaha sada hridaya kandare spurito vasachinandanaha. Because this love which is available, which is being given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has not been distributed in a very, very long time. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says, is an extended subject matter. So the mission of the Lord and the mission of the devotee are identical. The life of the devotee is Krishna, and the life of Krishna is the devotee. Sadhavo hridayam manyam, sadhavo hridayam tvaham. So whatever the mission of the Lord is, that will also be the mission of the devotee. And in order to make this mood of love which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would experience when he was living in Jagannath Puri accessible, and to make it valid, and to free it from the criticisms of those who would be antagonistic towards him, he displayed this love first in Srila Madhavendra Puri. Aidina dayadarnatha he mathuranatha kadava lokshase hridayam tvamaloka kartaram dayata brahmati kim karomyaham. As Srila Prabhupada is saying in this purport, in that poem is the seed of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cultivation of love of Godhead. In this verse, it's explained by Kaviraj Goswami that only 3 people were able to understand this verse. And that was Madhavendra Puri himself, who wrote it, who was personally empowered by Srimati Radharani, who was the one that also understood it, as well as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Kaviraj Goswami goes on to say that by reciting this verse, devotees can develop a deeper understanding of it. And what is the understanding? That understanding is that the highest conception of love for God is the mood of separation. The mood of feeling separation from Krishna. And we can see that in the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, even at the onset of his mission, when he was dealing with neophytes who were completely spaced out and addicted to intoxication, gambling, illicit sex, and meat eating, in his recording of the happening, he's saying that the best way to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is like a child crying for its mother. And this is because that this mood of separation, it indicates within the heart of the practitioner of devotional service that they feel a necessity for pleasing Krishna. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says that the easiest way to make advancement is to be cultivating this mood of separation. Because as long as one is feeling material despondency, that material despondency will only bring about the various whips of the material energy, adibhotika, adiyevika, and adhyatmika. But if one is cultivating this feeling of separation from Krishna, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that this is the strongest indication of wanting to please Krishna. And this mood of wanting to please Krishna is not simply an emotion, but it's a practical thing as well. As Srila Jiva Goswami explains in his commentary to the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, that there are 2 limbs, 2 divisions of pure devotional service. One is the Chaitasa Rupa, the activities of the senses and mind, in which one is engaging in practical service. And the other is the Bhava Rupa, the actual mood of devotion. So the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is fully manifested in Madhavendra Puri. Specifically, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Remuna, the Kirachora Gopinath temple, and in the midst of all of his associates began to glorify the devotion of Madhavendra Puri. He began to glorify the sacrifice of Madhavendra Puri, explaining that when Madhavendra Puri was living in Vrindavan, he was chanting in the banks of Govindakund, feeling this deep separation from Krishna, residing in Vrindavan, living underneath a tree, and practically fasting due to his being off the bodily platform of life, being completely absorbed and relishing that mood of separation and longing for his love with Krishna, his relationship with Krishna. So much so that he was giving up eating and sleeping due to the intensity of that focus, due to the intensity of that desire. When Madhavendra Puri was sitting there chanting, the people in the village began to take notice, and a small village boy came in and he said, "You know, people in my village, they don't fast the way that you're fasting. Everyone here, they always take something. And if we see that someone is hungry, we make sure that they're able to take something. So my mother has told me to bring you a pot of milk. My dear Madhavendra Puri, please drink it." So Madhavendra Puri was a bit flabbergasted by seeing this boy. And when he saw this boy, he became completely enchanted actually. He said, "Why is he so beautiful?" So Madhavendra Puri drank this milk which was given by this boy, and then he fell asleep. As he fell asleep, he had a dream of the same boy, and the boy said, "You know, many years ago, there was a Muslim who came here and he was creating havoc within the area of Vrindavan, and because of that, I've been put into a bush and it's feeling very, very hot." If anyone has been in Govardhan during the summertime, it's blistering hot outside. It's one of the hottest places in the entire world. So little Gopal is living inside this bush, and he says, "My dear Madhavendra Puri, I've been waiting for you to come here. Please come and rescue me from this bush and begin my worship." So Madhavendra Puri woke up and he was thinking, "My Lord, that boy was so beautiful. The Lord of my life was standing right in front of me, and I missed him. I'm such a fool. But then he gave up his self-abnegation and began to engage in practical service, going to meet all the villagers. And he said, I've had a dream. There is a deity of Gopal living in the bushes here. We need to rescue him and establish his worship. So all the villagers of Anayor, they all went into the bushes and they found this beautiful deity of Gopal. And Madhavendra Puri began making all sorts of arrangements to see that this deity would be established on the hill. As they began the worship, so many pots of water were being brought to cool down the body of the Lord. So many arrangements of prasadam or bhoga was being brought to offer to the Lord. And it said for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks on end, this deity was being worshipped by all sorts of villages all around Vrindavan and outside of Vrindavan, coming and bringing various offerings. Every day was a festival, an Anakuta festival. And this actually began the official worship of Govardhan Puja within the Gaudiya Sampradaya, this Anukuta ceremony which was performed by Srila Madhavendra Puri, this worship of Anukut being offered to Giriraj. So then, Madhavendra Puri, he had another dream, and this Gopal said, you know, I'm still feeling extremely hot. I would like it if you could go get some Malayan sandalwood from Jagannath Puri and bring it back here and apply it on my body. That will surely cool me down. And Madhavendra Puri immediately, with no questions asked, despite the fact he worked so hard to establish this deity, and he had built a temple, and he was performing such a high standard of worship in order to please this deity, despite that, he was still willing to go. This is very indicative of the mood of separation. That the mood of separation is not just an emotion, but the mood of separation is the impetus by which the service of the devotee becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. When we read the prayers of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, when we read the prayers of Narottam Das Thakur, according to an empiric materialistic disposition, one may be thinking, oh, such a sad state that they're in. Maybe they should see some therapy. But actually, we can see that it's not the case. When one becomes despondent in material activities, their activities diminish and they become idle and lazy. But when one is feeling despondency in relationship to Krishna, the Lord of their life, we can see that they become more active and more enthusiastic to serve the Lord. So the underlying mood which strengthens a devotee's service attitude is this deep feeling of separation from Krishna. Because that deep feeling, that deep sentiment of feeling separated from Krishna impels one to want to do more and more and more in order to see that Krishna is satisfied. So Madhavendra Puri, despite the fact that there were material inconvenience, unforeseen obstacles, and scarcity of resources, still went all the way to Jagannath Puri. There was personal inconvenience because to walk that far is extremely difficult. If anyone's taken a train from Vrindavan to Jagannath Puri, it takes about 26 hours to get there by train. What to speak of walking there? It takes at least 2 weeks to walk there by foot. And during that time, there was extreme conflict in India amongst the different Muslim magistrates, and there was practically war at every border of every state. So to go there as a wandering sadhu would be extremely risky. But despite that personal inconvenience, Madhavendra Puri still went. Unforeseen obstacles. There could be snakes, there could be tigers, there could be wars going on, but despite those unforeseen obstacles, Madhavendra Puri would still go. Scarcity of resources. Although there was no money, he was a sadhu living by himself with practically nothing except a kamandalu and a bead bag. He still took on the journey. He didn't have any money to buy sandalwood. It's not that sandalwood is a cheap commodity. But he walked all the way to Orissa. When he arrived in Orissa, he stopped at a temple in Remuna known as the Kirachora Gopinath Temple, which is now known as the Kirachora Gopinath Temple. At that time, it was just the Gopinath Temple. This is a very special deity which was personally carved by the hand of Lord Ram in, what's the name of the, Chittakrut. When Ram and Sita were living in Chitrakoot, Sita said, I desire to see what your form will be like in Dwarpa. And Ram said, that's fine, but let me carve the deity. You can't look at it until it's finished. So he was carving this deity of Gopinath with the tip of his arrow. And Sita was becoming so anxious to see the deity that she burst in and looked at it, and so Ram stopped it. So it's actually an incomplete deity. If you look at it, there's a few parts which have some imperfections. But then a king of Orissa was so enchanted by this deity of Gopinath when he was visiting Chitrakoot on a pilgrimage that he brought that deity all the way back to Orissa and established this temple in Raimuna. So when Madhavendra Puri is gazing upon this deity, he asks the pujari, what is your worship here? Because he's wondering if he can render some better service for his own Gopal existing back in Vrindavan. And he said, yes, we offer a very special kind of Amrita Keli, a very special type of sweet rice, which is offered on a daily basis a few times a day. And Madhavendra Puri is thinking, if I could taste that sweet rice, then I could cook it for my Gopal. But then immediately he began to chastise himself, thinking this is a desire for sense gratification. I can't think about enjoying the bhoga which is supposed to be offered to the Lord, the food stuff which is being offered to the Lord. So he immediately ran away, and he was sitting in an alley. He was actually sitting underneath a tree, not so far from the Raimuna temple. During the night, when the pujari made the evening offering, he offered a few pots of sweet rice. They actually offer about 20 or so pots of sweet rice on a nightly basis. And when they were making this offering, the pujari noticed that one of the... actually, he didn't. When the pujari went to go take rest and he put the deity to rest, he had a dream where this deity was saying, I have saved a particular pot of sweet rice behind the deity. If you can please bring this to my devotee, Madhavendra Puri, I want him to have it. So the pujari woke up and he immediately went on the altar, took a bath, went on the altar, looked behind the deity, and there was a pot of sweet rice. So he went out onto the street and he said, Madhava Puri, Gopinath has stolen a pot of sweet rice for you. Please come, please come. So then he found Madhavendra Puri and he gave him this pot of sweet rice. And Madhavendra Puri began to eat the sweet rice, and tears of love began to stream down his face, remembering how Gopinath had reciprocated with his devotion, with his desire to want to please Gopinath. So then he broke with his desire to please Gopal. Then he broke that pot of sweet rice, kept it in a little bag, and he would eat a little bit on a daily basis. Then he continued on to Jagannath Puri, and because he'd become so famous from this pastime of Gopinath stealing this pot of kheer for him, all the pandas in Jagannath Puri had found out about him, and they were glorifying him. And using that fame for the purpose of glorifying Gopal, he was able to procure some chandan. And then he began to proceed back. As he went back, he was in Raimuna again, and then he had another dream of Gopal. And Gopal told him that actually you've done enough. You can apply this chandan on Gopinath and it will be the same as applying chandan on me. This inaugurated what is known as Chandan Yatra. So every year in Raimuna, they perform a 2-week-long festival where they apply for 2 days a full body of chandan, and then the rest of the time they apply it on his forehead. This Chandan Yatra. So this pastime, it glorifies how the Lord is eager to reciprocate with the mood of devotion of his devotees. And this pastime is applicable for us because Madhavendra Puri's sacrifice, Madhavendra Puri's dedication, and Madhavendra Puri's willing to forego all considerations of name, fame, honor, dishonor, happiness, distress, heat, and cold in order to serve the Lord is indicative of his mood of deep feelings of separation. It was from this cultivation of this verse, Aidina Dayadar Nathahe, Mathuna Natha Kadava Lokshase, Hridayam Tvamaloka Kartaram, Dayata Brahmati Kim Karomyaham. That this mood of devotion which Madhavendra Puri possessed acted as the impetus by which he could serve more and more and more. So as we enter into Gaur Purnima, just as Madhavendra Puri was feeling separation from the Lord of his life, Gopal and Gopinath, in the same way, we should be understanding that the highest form of worship to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is feeling deep separation from him and understanding that the only cause of our despondency is a lack of direct association with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the only cause of our jubilation and our nourishment is being fully engaged in the service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the mood of the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya is fully manifested in the heart of Madhavendra Puri. And we see that all of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates and all of the associates which would come after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are pervaded with this mood of serving Krishna and the feeling of separation. We find it in the mood of the six Goswamis. We find it in Srila Prabhupada as he's crossing the Atlantic Ocean on the Jaladuta. He's feeling that on Janmashtami day, all the devotees are celebrating Janmashtami, and he's giving a class to ship workers. And he's praying on the Jaladuta, Krishna tava punya hobe bai. That if Krishna, you want to please your devotee, Srimati Radharani, then you should listen to my appeal. You should engage me in your service by expanding the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. As he was sitting in New York by himself on Gaura Jayanti, the first year he arrived in New York in 1966, he was lamenting, thinking that all of his god brothers and all the devotees are in Sridham Mayapur, experiencing the blissful kirtans in front of the beautiful forms of Shri Shri Radha Gandharva Giridhari, and he's sitting by himself alone in his office in New York. But we see that Srila Prabhupada's service attitude was unparalleled compared to anyone else on the planet at that time. And that's because he was actively cultivating this feeling of deep separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that deep separation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered him to spread Krishna consciousness in the entire world, because he could understand that separation does not mean one's own sense gratification, it means the pleasure of Krishna. And the greatest pleasure that one can give to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to bring as many people into the tidal wave of ecstatic love coming from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement. So as we enter into Gaura Jayanti, we can celebrate the fact that we have attained the shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have attained the shelter of Srila Prabhupada, and Gaura Jayanti indicates that we will become victorious over the ways of Maya and become empowered representatives of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu if we adopt the right mood of service and dedication. Hare Krishna. So it's 8:26. I want to make sure I finish on time, but also I want to make sure everyone can say something if they have anything to say. Yes, Rabindranath Prabhu.
Thank you for the nice class. You were mentioning about it's no mistake that Lord Chaitanya's appearance day is soon after Madhavendra Puri. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu becomes glorified, he wants to see his devotee who established the mood of his worship, who established the mood of his sampradaya, to be glorified before. So that we can all meditate on the mood of Madhavendra Puri and the unparalleled mood of service which he carried as we enter into Gaura Jayanti. That's what I mean. Because although Krishna himself likes to be glorified, he says that the devotee, one who claims to be a devotee of me, may or may not be my devotee. But one who claims to be the devotee of my devotee, he is actually my devotee. So Madhavendra Puri is the link that was the first root, the first seed, which manifested the mood which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would distribute all around the world. So before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is glorified in Gaura Jayanti, we get the opportunity to remember Madhavendra Puri, to refine our service attitude, refine our feelings of devotion, so we can enter into the celebration of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day with the proper attitude. There is a pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita with the Sanudiya Brahmana, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had met the Sanodiya Brahmana when he entered into Mathura. And as he entered into Mathura, the Sanodiya Brahmana and him were dancing in ecstatic love. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu afterwards asked him, where did you learn these moods of devotion? And he said, my spiritual master was Madhavendra Puri. The Saudina Brahmana was considered to be a lower standard of a Brahmana. So actually it wouldn't be appropriate if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a sannyasi, according to Vaidika Shastric considerations, ate prasadam in his home. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I want to take prasadam in your home, because he heard that Madhavendra Puri had taken prasadam in his home. And then the Brahmana began to argue. He said, no, this wouldn't be appropriate for you. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Tarako patishta shrutayo vibinam nasharishir yasya matam nabinam dharmasya tatvam guhitam guhayam mahajano yena gatasapanta. That if Madhavendra Puri, who was a Mahajan, has taken prasadam in your home, the Shastra contradicts itself always. The Rishis have different conclusions, the Munis have different conclusions, and the conclusions of Dharma are very difficult to understand. But if Madhavendra Puri behaved in this way, I can take it for granted that this is the proper behavior of religious principles. So studying the characteristics of Madhavendra Puri, meditating on his moods of devotion, meditating on his sacrifice in order to please Gopal, establishes the proper disposition of service. So when we enter into Gaur Purnima, we can receive the full mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Kevin, Prema Sankirtan.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the wonderful class. So this mood of separation is uncomfortable for the conditioned living entity. And we're conditioned to aversion from discomfort. What are like the steps to develop separation, and then the highest order, which is love and separation?
Well, it's only uncomfortable for a living entity, the idea of separation, because their only conception of separation is in relationship to material despondency. So, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, the materialistic demeanor cannot possibly fathom the transcendental autocrat who is lovingly trying to engage his various parts and parcels in his uninterrupted service. So, to try to conceive of the moods of devotion carried in the hearts of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates is not possible from the materialistic disposition. The mood of separation is a very simple thing to understand. It means a desire to want to please Krishna. Going from the position of myself wanting to be pleased, which is the cause of material despondency, towards feeling I want to do more for Krishna, which is the cause for spiritual despondency. So the way it's cultivated, Tara Madhye Sarva Shrestha Nama Sankirtan Niraparada Namaloy Paye Premadan. That one simply has to dedicate themselves to the offenseless, pure chanting of Hare Krishna, and everything will come about. We don't need to artificially impose anything upon ourselves, because by chanting Hare Krishna purely, everything will come. When we try to artificially impose, we become guilty of jnana prayas, over-endeavoring with our intelligence to understand the realm of transcendence. But rather, we should be seeking an invitation from that higher realm, from those higher entities, and they will extend their hand and bring us up, rather than us trying to door crash on the realm of transcendence. So we should just be concerned about situating ourselves in the proper service attitude and be interested in being seen by Krishna, not trying to see this world, including Krishna, as objects of our enjoyment. When we have that enjoying spirit, the mood of separation will always be inconceivable and unbearable. But if one has the mood of service, then one can easily understand the devotion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the devotion of Madhavendra Puri, and the devotion which is running through the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Why is separation from Krishna is considered highest than union with Krishna?
Because separation creates a feeling, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati explains, of wanting to do more for Krishna. And that separation nourishes the devotees coming together. When the devotees come together after experiencing prolonged feelings of separation, that union becomes even sweeter. So that mood of separation is higher because it nourishes the union. And that mood of separation promotes a deep feeling of wanting to do something for Krishna, rather than just enjoying Krishna. Actually, we're meant to be enjoyed by Krishna, and that mood of being enjoyed is most presently manifested when one has a feeling of being separated from Krishna. This is explained by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. That's what he says. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Vansha kalpatarum bischa kripa sindhura evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vande Nishad.